Myself, Hetal Kundalia, PhD scholar of Saurashtra University, welcome all the participants from all over India in this 4 days webinar series on conceptual and applied physics, jointly organized by Department of Nanoscience and Advanced Materials, Saurashtra University, and Department of Physics, School of Science, RK University, Rajkot. Now, I request Professor Mayank Pandya, Director, School of Science, RK University, Rajkot, will brief about this webinar.
Thank you, madam. Hello, all the delegates of online webinar series, specially entitled as Conceptual and Applied Physics. It's really honor for the RK University, entire RK University and SFTC Trust, and on behalf of our Vice President, Shri Denish Patel, and our Registrar, Shri N.S. Ramani, I congratulate all the organizers, especially both the institute, especially Department of Physics, School of Science, RK University, as well as the Department of Nanoscience and Department of Physics of Saurashtra University, both the higher authority. I am also thankful to the partner university, that is Saurashtra University, to holding our hand, especially Vice Chancellor Sir, Registrar Sir, and everyone, and Dean Faculty of Science, especially to allocate all the infrastructural facilities as well as all the intellectual facilities of the this webinar, especially designed for the, and this is not only platform where very targeted audience they participate. I have seen a huge list, especially more than 150 institute and more than 2,500 participants have registered, shown the interest for the gaining of knowledge. So although it is a pandemic situation, Corona has spread very rigorously in the country and become a situation difficult day by day. But although it teaches us a really good way of blended learning. So actually, within a short span of time, the society have started the antidote of the education and being an education against the corona, that if we cannot go outside, the education will come to your home itself, right? So thanks to this technology interventions to provide a huge facility to all the peers, all the audience. I know all those speakers, especially from the different domain and speakers from the different expertise area, but ultimately they serves you a very high level of domain knowledge, high level of specialized topic, not only the specialized topic, but in such a way that even a layman person can also be understood the core idea of those conceptual and applied physics. So I again congratulate both the institutes, especially RK University and the Saurashtra University, to arranging such a wonderful platform and sharing, holding hand with each other, and it will be definitely helpful for the entire society. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining with us. Now, we start our first webinar talk on materials for new technology by Professor D.G. Kuberkar, Head Department of Nanoscience and Advanced Materials, Saurashtra University.
Yeah, good afternoon, all the participants of this webinar series, jointly organized by the Department of Nanoscience and Advanced Materials, Saurashtra University, Rajkot, and Department of Physics, School of Sciences, RK University, Rajkot, Gujarat. This is the first talk in the series of webinar talks under this webinar conference. I am thankful to the organizers of the webinar, Dr. Savan Kadba from RK University and Dr. Ashish Ravalia from Saurashtra University, to give me opportunity to share few of the basic understandings about the materials which are useful in the new technology. Myself, Dr. D.G. Kuberkar, heading the Department of Nanoscience and Advanced Materials at Saurashtra University Rajkot, and the title of my presentation is Materials for New Technologies. I am available at the email which is given here and the website www.kuberkarresearchgroup.in. Actually, this is for the people from Pan India who are attending this webinar. We are from Rajkot, westernmost part of India. Rajkot is a big town of 1.8 million population, and this is our Saurashtra University campus, lush green campus of 350 acres, and the Department of Nanoscience and Advanced Materials situated in the Saurashtra University, Rajkot. This is the building of our stopgap building, not a permanent building. New building is coming up. Outline of my talk: I will introduce to the periodic table. I have designed this talk. Some part of the talk is for the layman and the common public who have interest in the science and the developments and its applications in the technology. So please pardon me, the experts who are attending this webinar. For those people who always have an interest in the developments in the science, particularly physics and the materials, some part of the talk is specially for them. So I will give the introduction to the periodic table, which is one of the most important part of the chemistry and physics, that is elements which are already, this periodic table was developed. I will give details about the periodic table. I will talk about states of the materials, then introduction to few functional oxides in which I am involved in the research from last 35 years. Then I will talk about the spintronic materials from last 15 years, 20 years. These new materials have taken up the important role in the technological applications. I will show some slides about the basic nanomaterials and their applications. I will touch upon the ceramic materials. Then lastly, I will conclude with the composites, which are the materials of the future. So coming to the periodic table, which was first time shown and developed by a Russian chemist, Mendeleev, in 1869. And in 2019, the international community, scientific community, they devoted the year 2019 as a 150 years of the periodic table discovery, year of periodic table. So I will just show few slides about the important aspects of the periodic table, different groups in the periodic table, their properties and usefulness. This is for people who have interest in the science, particularly chemistry and physics. See, alkali metals, this is the first group in the periodic table, which is seen here, and this group has got a +1 stable valence state. That means there is only one electron in the outermost orbit, and they are very stable in nature. Then second is the alkaline earths, which are the beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and so on. They have got +2 stable valence states. They are also equally important in various applications. Then comes the elements in liquid form. There are two important liquid elements. One is the mercury, another is a bromine, that is at the standard temperature and pressure, that is at the room temperature and the atmospheric pressure. They are liquid in nature, while the gallium and rubidium, they become liquid at or just above the room temperature. These are very interesting elements in the periodic table, which are in the liquid form. Then comes the halogen elements, halogen family, which is marked with fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and so on. They have got very high reactivity. Halogens tends to exist in nature as compounds and ions, not as free elements. So halogen is the only group in periodic table which exhibits all the three states of matter, that is solid, liquid and gases, on the Mother Earth. Coming to the next important group, that is called as noble gases or inert gases. You can see here helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon. These have got extremely low chemical reactivity, and they have got completely filled valence shell, that is outermost shell. Therefore, they are always called as inert gases. They are inert to any reactions. They are noble gases because they have a monoatomic configuration under normal condition. They have got very high ionization energy. Ionization potential is very high. After noble gases comes important group of elements in the periodic table. One is marked with a red, that is transition metals. Why transition? Because you can see this is the one tower on periodic table, this is another tower in the periodic table. Their properties are transient between the two, therefore they are called as transition metals. In the transition metals, there are another group called as inner transition metals, which starts with the lanthanide series and actinide series. These are called as rare earths because they are available in rare nature in the Mother Earth. So these are transition metals and inner transition metals. Then, so if you can see the periodic table, majority of the elements in the periodic table, they are metallic in nature. Their properties are metallic in nature. While the some elements which are there, they have got non-metallic nature. So these are the two groups of the periodic table, metallic and non-metallic nature of the periodic table. Few of the elements in the periodic table, which are called as metalloids. Metalloids have the properties of both metals and non-metals. You can see here boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium, and so on. Some of these metalloids are widely used in the semiconductor technology. As you know, in 1950s, the discovery of the semiconductors, and last 60 years, the semiconductors have ruled the day-to-day life of human beings on this earth. So these are silicon and germanium. So these are very important in the semiconductor industry. Now, after seeing the metalloids and different groups of the periodic table, we come to the next part in the presentation, that is states of the matter. Everybody knows right from your school days, there are liquid, solid and gases. These are the three basic states of the matter which are occurring naturally on the Mother Earth. Whereas there is a fourth state of matter called as plasma state. This plasma consists of highly charged particles with extremely high kinetic energy along with the neutral atoms. Plasma is a fourth state of matter. I will come to that also. So these are the three states, liquid, solid and gas, which are occurring naturally on the earth. Now coming to the liquids, in your day-to-day life, the time you get up from the bed up to you go back to the bed, the chemicals, the liquids are, we are using the liquids in different forms, one or other. For example, acetic acid, which is a very important, this, suppose you put this 5% solution in the water, you get white vinegar, which is used in the various applications. Acetone, which is a very popular liquid in the chemistry laboratory and physics laboratories, which is used in the nail polish removers. Hydrogen peroxide is used in the medical use. Ethylene glycol, this liquid is used in the nanomaterial synthesis. So then comes the next state of matter, that is carbon dioxide gases, which are used in the fire extinguishers. The only fire extinguisher is recommended is carbon dioxide for the electrical equipments, which has to see that the fire gets extinguished for the electrical equipments. Carbon dioxide is very safe to use for these equipments because it is non-conductive gas. There is no sticky foam coming out and no messy powder is left behind after the use of carbon dioxide in fire extinguishers. Similarly, nitrogen, which is a very important gas, it is just like inert gas. It doesn't react readily. It is used in our tubes of our vehicles to restrict the friction and wear and tear. Argon gas is used in the incandescent light bulbs. Then chlorine is used in a variety of applications, water purification, and so on. Then, as the gases are useful, there are always the harmful effects of the gases also. For example, if you see the negative side of the carbon dioxide, the exhaust coming out from the industrial wastes, industrial chimneys that consist of carbon dioxide. Similarly, this is toxic in nature. So one has to always restrict, and environmental free gases has to be taken out from the industries. Another is carbon monoxide, which comes out of the exhaust of the motor vehicles. It is also toxic in nature. Then coming to the state of matter, that is plasma, fourth state of matter, which is a very important. Actually, 99% of the universe consists of plasma. Plasma do not occur naturally on the earth. And this was shown, this was proved through equation given by great physicist, Indian physicist, Sir Meghnad Saha, on whose name Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics is established in Kolkata. He gave a very important equation which we always teach to our students of plasma physics, that why plasma cannot occur naturally on the Mother Earth. 99% of the universe consists of plasma. Plasma is a hot ionized gas consisting of approximately equal numbers of positively charged ions and negatively charged electrons along with the neutral atoms. Characteristics of plasma are totally different as compared to that of ordinary neutral gases which we come across in the day-to-day life. Very important thing about the plasma is that plasma is strongly influenced by the electrical and magnetic fields. So it is said that plasma has a brain of itself. That's why we call that it is a quasi-neutral and collective behavior are the two basic definitions of the plasma. Plasmas are present in the fluorescent lamps. Whatever day to day you are using the fluorescent lamps in your houses also, you can see the tube lights, fluorescent tube lights earlier, which were used in the day to day life. They were having the plasma. The temperatures of the fluorescent tube lights, if you happen to see on the tube light printing is there, that is very, very high. But the density of the plasma is very, very low, so that you don't feel the heat of the tube light. Heat and the temperature, these are two different phenomena. We always feel the heat when the density of the material is very high. Then only heat is felt. Otherwise, temperature and heat are different phenomena. Plasma is 99% of the matter in the universe in the plasma. This is a galaxy. Everywhere plasma is present. If you see the corona of the sun, solar flares, solar interiors of the stars, atmospheres, ionosphere, Van Allen belts, then aurora borealis, that is northern lights, all these phenomena which is outside the Earth's atmosphere, everywhere plasma is there. And that is why it is the most important part of the matter out of the four. But we don't have the plasma naturally on the Earth. Artificially, we have to make the plasma. And a webinar talk is already planned in this webinar series on the plasma and its applications. That is a very important talk in the webinar series. Then applications of plasma, as I told you, in our day-to-day, in our laboratories, research laboratories also, we grow the thin films, pulse laser deposition, the facility available in my department, DC sputtering. These facilities are used for making the thin films of the materials. Then coming to the solid part, solid state of the matter. This is the state of the matter which we use abundantly in our day-to-day life. So solids are classified broadly into two categories. One is a crystalline solid, another is an amorphous solid. So crystalline solid can be further classified as two, single crystalline and polycrystalline. So single crystalline means one crystal order which exists throughout, that is long range ordering exists from one end to another, that is throughout the length and breadth of that crystal, one order is there. Whereas polycrystalline means number of orders are more. So these polycrystalline materials are mostly available in our day-to-day use. Whereas amorphous solids, there is no definite order of the atoms which are in the solid, so they are called as highly disordered systems. So they are randomly oriented. Then this is a picture of how the atomic arrangement looks in a monocrystalline or single crystalline solid, single directional growth, then polycrystalline, multidirectional growth, and amorphous. There is no any definite order because it's a random growth. So if we go from perfectness to the randomness, so perfectness means monocrystalline or single crystalline order, and you go to the randomness, that is amorphous order. So this way we can classify the solids into crystalline and the amorphous solids. How to know that a particular solid is of which type? For example, if we take the X-ray diffraction pattern, X-rays are very important in the characterization of the materials. X-rays are useful in medicine. X-rays are used in medical therapy. So many aspects X-rays are used. This is one of the biggest discoveries mankind has observed, that is discovery of X-rays. So single crystalline materials or solids, they have got very single peak. Only one peak is seen, that is single crystalline aluminum oxide grown in the 001 plane. Whereas polycrystalline materials, for example, zinc oxide is their bulk powder, and you can have large number of diffraction peaks, and from that you can find out the crystal structure of the zinc oxide after some calculations. Whereas amorphous solids, there is no definite peak, no sharp peak exists. For example, a glass, amorphous glasses. Then if we grow zinc oxide on some aluminum oxide, that is called as sapphire substrate, in the form of a thin film, you can see the XRD pattern. This is the aluminum oxide peak, that is a substrate on which zinc oxide is grown. Two peaks are separate. Zinc oxide is grown in the 002 direction, whereas aluminum oxide is in the 006. So therefore, and this is a background. So from the X-ray diffraction, you can find out whether you have a epitaxial nature of growth or you have the non-epitaxial type of growth. Then coming to the important class of materials, solids, that is crystalline solids. Crystalline solids, as I told you earlier, there are two orders, single crystalline or monocrystalline and polycrystalline. Single crystalline, you can grow the thin films of the single crystalline materials, and the growth is a single directional growth. That is also called as epitaxial growth, unidirectional growth. Single crystals can be grown in bulk also. These are silicon single crystals used in technological applications. Variety of techniques of single crystals growing are developed, and instruments are all available. Then single crystals are useful in the substrates. You have got silicon wafers. These are silicon wafers. These are zinc oxide substrate. Silicon wafers are used in a very large quantity in the semiconductor industries. All the chips which are grown in the semiconductor technology, they are grown on the wafers. Then they are also used, silicon substrates are used in the solar cells. These are solar cell panels, that is photovoltaic panels. Then coming to the polycrystalline solids, you can grow the thin films of the polycrystalline materials. Multi-directional growth will be there. Large number of XRD peaks are there. Then you can grow it in the form of bulk powders, which is day to day you are using the polycrystalline powder, which we always use. For example, copper oxide. Then solar cells can be grown using polycrystalline growth also. There are crucibles. These are aluminum oxide, that is our alumina crucibles. They are used for heating at very high temperatures. These are recrystallized alumina crucibles used in the industries and the laboratories. What are the properties of crystalline solids? Very interesting properties are exhibited by the crystalline solids. They have unique geometrical shape, highly ordered three-dimensional arrangement of atoms. This makes the crystalline solids unique in the arena of the solids. They have very sharp melting point and boiling points. Therefore, their applications are designed considering this aspect. Examples of the crystalline solids are sapphire crystals, silicon wafers, diamonds, and so on. These are very popular examples. Coming to the amorphous solids, as the name suggests, they doesn't have any order They are non-crystalline solids and they lack long-range ordering. So for example, our human tissues is an example of amorphous material, because the disorganized nature of the human tissues means there is no common center of mass of the each human body cell, and therefore we call it as a amorphous matter, our human tissues. So these are crystalline, then polycrystalline and amorphous. Three orders are shown again here. What are the properties? Actually, amorphous solids are disordered, but they have plenty of applications. Their properties are enormous. So you should never feel that disordered materials are of no use to the mankind. They are equally important as crystalline solids. What are the properties of amorphous materials? These solid particles are randomly organized, arranged in 3 dimensions. They do not have sharp melting points, so they melt over a wide range of temperature. Amorphous solids are formed due to sudden cooling of the liquids. When the liquids are cooled suddenly, you get the amorphous solids. Very popular examples of amorphous are coal, glass. These are amorphous glass I am talking about, plastic, rubber, and so on. There are large number of solids which are amorphous in nature. So we come to the glass materials, amorphous glasses. So for example, you have a liquid and the liquid is cooled. Liquid is cooled. There are 3 types of coolings you can see here. One, liquid is cooled very slowly. Liquid is cooled in a medium way, and then liquid is cooled in a fast way, that is called as quenching. So quenching rate is very high. So liquid may be cooled so fast that there is no time of crystallization and it becomes amorphous. The material becomes amorphous. That is called as sudden quenching. Actually, the properties of the glasses differ depending upon their cooling rate. So therefore you can see here the fictive temperature here, here and here at the 3 places, fast cooling, medium and slow, the fictive temperature that is different in the 3 cases. So what are the ingredients for making a glass? Glass technology is a very important branch of technology, which is an output of the material science only. Limestone, which is a main ingredient of the glass, that is our chunkhadi, calcium carbonate. Limestone is plenty available on the sea coast or the coastal line of the Gujarat border. We have a longest coastal line in whole of the states of India. Gujarat has the longest coastal line, and plenty of deposits of limestones are there in the Kutch, Saurashtra region of Gujarat. So limestone makes glass insoluble in water. Second ingredient is silica, which is always plenty of available at the sea coast. That is sand, a special type of sand, and because of that the glass melts at very high temperature. Then comes the soda ash, which is a third ingredient in a normal glass, that is Na2CO3. Soda ash is responsible for lowering the melting point of the raw materials. So different quantities of soda ash are added to have different quality of the glasses. So you can see different type of glass materials. Soda lime glass, and this soda lime glass is used in making window panes, tablewares, bottles, bulbs, and so on. Then we have got the colored glasses. These colored glasses, by using special pigments, one can make the colored glasses. They are used in the decorating walls, making sunglasses, light signals for automobiles, trains and aeroplanes. Everywhere colored glasses are used. Then plate glasses. Plate glasses are used in the shop windows, big doors, glass doors, and so on. Then next comes the optical glasses. Optical glasses are used in the lenses, prisms, and optical instruments. Then comes the next category of glasses, that is Pyrex glasses. Pyrex glasses are also called as borosilicate glasses. So therefore you can see the combination of the boron and silicon. So borosilicate glasses, they have got very high melting points. They are used in the laboratory equipments and ovenwares. So in our kitchens also, nowadays in our day-to-day life, we are using the Pyrex glasses also. Then we have got photochromatic glasses, and these glasses are used in your lenses of your optical lenses. You can see here they change the color with the intensity of light. So we always say photo sunglasses or photochrome glasses. Then laminated glasses. So these laminated glasses, they are also known as bulletproof glasses. They are used in the aeroplanes and windshields of the cars, because aeroplanes, when they go up in the atmosphere, the pressures are extremely high, temperature gradients are very high. So therefore such type of laminated glasses are very tough and they withstand very high pressures. Then safety glasses. These are special type of glasses which are used in the automobiles and making bulletproof screens. So you can see large number of the glasses, types of glasses which are used in variety of applications. Then for example, in our everybody is using the mobile phone. So tempered glasses nowadays around 50 to 100 rupees spent, you can just get this type of the cover of the mobile screen has to be put with the tempered glasses. These are oleophobic coatings are there. So because you cannot, it will not it will not be harmed because of any fire or something. Then it has got 9H hardness. Then it has got perfect adhesion onto a screen. Similarly, it has got complete 100% transparent, and most important, it is responsive to the touch, so that you can operate the mobile from outside instead of touching the screen. That is shatterproof. So these are tempered glass. This is a very important glass, and now it is being manufactured in India now. So the next amorphous solid is a rubber. As you know that rubber exists in two forms. One is a natural rubber and a vulcanized rubber. Actually, natural rubber is tapped in the form of a latex. You can see here a tree, rubber tree, when it grows around 6 years of its age, cut is given in a special angle and a container is kept there, and the latex comes out of the rubber tree. This is a natural rubber. This is sticky in nature. It deforms very easily when it becomes warm. It becomes brittle when it is cold. These are very important properties of the natural rubber actually. Actually, in this state, it is poor material when a high level of elasticity is required actually. So therefore, natural rubber is not much useful in the technological applications, but this natural rubber, 99% of the natural rubber is made from the latex, as I told you, and the name of the tree is Hevea brasiliensis. The name comes from the Brazil, because Brazil is in Brazil country, maximum production of the natural latex rubber takes place. The seeds are there. This natural rubber is grown using the seeds actually. Then the next type of rubber is vulcanized rubber, which is used in the applications. Actually, vulcanization is a chemical process of converting natural rubber polymer into the synthetic rubber, that is vulcanized rubber, by addition of sulfur. So you can see here, before vulcanization, these are the rubber, these are the molecules of the natural, and then we have the cross-linking takes place using the sulfur linkages, and you have the vulcanized rubber. And this vulcanized rubber has got plenty of applications. These products made of vulcanized rubber, used in the glues, used in tires, shoes, gloves, balloons, medical tubings, elastic threads, everywhere. You just name and you can see that application of the vulcanized or the artificial rubber is there. Then comes next important type of the amorphous solids, that is the polymers. We are surrounded by polymers in our day-to-day life, right from the bucket, right from the plastic bottles, then toys, shoe, everywhere polymers are available, and we are using the polymers. Actually, this beautiful dog, he is saying thanks to polymer because he is wearing a coat or apron which is made up of polymer, so that he gets protected from the winter. In the Western countries, there is a severe winter, so dogs are covered with the polymer suits. So you can see here DVDs. The DVDs are there. CDs and DVDs are grown on the polymers, and all your utensil plastic wares are nothing but polymer wares. Actually, whenever you are talking about the tea time, always tea cups are there. Tea glasses are made up of polymers. Polymers are available. Actually, they are the industrial waste from the petrochemical and other industries. They are available in the form of granules, and using some technique, you have to make them using in the form of different shapes and useful utensils or useful ware. Actually, disadvantage of these, they are not eco-friendly. So this is the most disadvantage of the polymer plastic materials. Now, but the research is in full swing and full form to grow eco-friendly polymers now. So very soon you will be having the eatable polymers also, so that you can use it for storing or serving. The same thing you can eat also. This type of polymers are being developed. These are eco-friendly polymers. So what is polymerization? From the chemistry point of view, you have so many monomers are there. These are the single, what you call as molecules, and these single molecules are joined together to form a polymer. Poly means many. So large monomers, they are joined together. Polymerization reaction is there, and using polymerization, you can grow a large chain or a very long chain polymers which are there. So the polymers are useful. Monomers are not much useful in the technological applications where polymers are used. Polymer materials are used in our day-to-day life. You can see PVC, polyvinyl chloride. All our pipelines nowadays, in our domestic pipelines and the industrial pipelines, they are using the PVC pipelines. You can thread them, you can use instead of the earlier metal pipelines which have got a problem of corrosion, breaking, and all the problems of the PVC pipelines are used. PVCs are used in the electrical cables also everywhere. These are different types of polymer materials which are used. Polyethylene, then LDP, low density polyethylene, high density polyvinyl chloride, PVC, polyvinylidene chloride, polystyrene, then polyvinyl acetate, PVA. All these have got different uses. They are used in the plastic bags. Now polythene bags are banned below certain thickness. You cannot use the plastic bags. That is a very good move because they are not degradable. Then the LDP is used in the electrical insulations, bottles and toys, pipes. So you can see variety of applications of the polymer materials are there in our day-to-day life. Then few list of polymer materials actually which are used in the synthesis of nanomaterials. PVA is useful in plenty in the synthesis of nanomaterial using the chemical route, because nanomaterials, I will come to that in 2-3 slides. PVA and PVF, polyvinylidene fluoride, they are used in the nanomaterial synthesis. Then comes the use of the amorphous materials, that is optical fibers. As I will be talking about the applied physics aspect, this comes under the applied physics. Optical fibers are made from the glass or plastic threads. Actually, the fiber optic cables, they consist of bundle of glass threads, each of which is capable of transmitting information modulated onto the light waves. So whatever you are seeing, the transmission and all the communication throughout the world is through the optical fiber cables only. Highly monochromatic laser light is used for transmitting the information, and the phenomena which is used is called as total internal refraction. Whenever a signal is introduced at a certain angle, it gets completely reflected. 100% reflection takes place. That is called as total internal reflection, depending upon the diameter, material, and all the technical aspects of the fiber optic cables. Otherwise, if you are putting at some different angle that the signal is put, that there is a chance of loss of the signal. So therefore, optical fibers are used, and the fibers which are used in the technological applications in transmission lines are multimode graded index fibers. So you can see different types of the refractive indices are there. N1 is greater than N2. This N1 is the internal, N2 is the outer, and then there are still coverings are there, different coverings are there. This is called as cladding. So therefore, you have different type of refractive indices, and according to that, you get total internal refraction phenomena for the transmission of the signal. So therefore, the light outside the acceptance cone, this is called as acceptance cone, cannot be coupled onto the fiber. So therefore, this is a technicality of the fiber optic transmission. Then what are the properties? Fiber optic cables have much greater bandwidth than the metallic cables. That's why they can carry large amount of data. Data transmission, the data amount of data transmission is very, very large. They are less susceptible than metal cables for the interference. Interference is minimum in the fiber optic cables. They are thin and lighter than the metal wires. Data can be transmitted digitally. This is very important aspect, because instead of the analog data transmission, digital data can be transmitted. Applications of optical fibers, I have already listed here large number of applications. Most important thing is that the 3G, 4G connection network, whatever we are now discussing, you are seeing all these webinars, everything to the network transmission, and this is 3G, 4G. Now 5G, 6G, already Japanese and Korea, they have come up with the 5G, 6G. India will be coming with the 5G very soon. This is because of the optical fiber communication technology. Now coming to the functional oxides, after seeing the liquid, gases, plasma, and solids, then something about the polymers and so on, I come to the special type of materials which are used in the future technologies, that is functional oxides. I have been working in this for research from last almost 20-25 years, and we have worked extensively in these oxide materials. So some of the functional materials are barium titanate, strontium titanate, ferroelectric materials, then lanthanum, calcium, manganite, that is called as manganite materials, then lithium niabates, then tin oxide, semiconductor light detectors, then oxide, these are our transition metal oxides, high temperature superconductors, that is 1987 discovery, and so on. These are all functional materials. Why these are needed in the future? Because advanced electronic devices will be developed using the functional materials that would enhance functionalities of the existing semiconductor technology. Now the time has come, the semiconductor technology has been used extensively from last 60 years, but when the size of the semiconductor chip is going down, I will come to that soon, that semiconductors, they lose their identity and their usefulness, and then comes the use of functional materials. We always want better than that we have today. We always feel that we should have better. Start from a mobile. Everybody wants a mobile. Every 2 years, 1 year, they would like to change it to the higher version of the mobile because we need a Bluetooth facility. We are always about the high Wi-Fi should be there. GPS is there. Screen resolution should be very high. The size of the mobile should be as small as possible. Weight should be very less. You should have the camera should be a very high megapixels. We are talking about now 50 megapixels and 100 megapixels cameras. Resolutions are very high, screen resolutions. All these things are always demand of a human being, and this is only satisfied using the development of new material technologies. So therefore, physical properties and chemical properties of functional materials are sensitive to the temperature, pressure, electrical field, magnetic field, optical wavelength, gases, absorbed gas molecules, and the pH value. All these aspects have to be taken care when we are developing the new functional materials for the new technologies. Just I will show 1 or 2 slides about the manganites. Manganites have a general formula. They are A1 minus X, AX. This is a dopant. AX is a dopant in 1 minus X. So you just subtract X and you add this A dash into A, you get this doped oxide. They have got a perovskite unit cell, AbO3. This is a perovskite unit cell. So we have got A element, B element, and oxygen is carrying. These are oxides. A is a cation, B is also a cation, and oxygen is there. So this is a crystal structure of a perovskite unit cell. So magnetoresistance is a very important property exhibited by manganites. Magnetoresistance can be defined as the resistivity in the presence of applied field minus the resistivity without application of any field divided by the resistivity without application of field multiplied by 100 because you are talking about the percentage now. So MR is the change in the resistance of the material. So depending upon how the change is there, the MR can be positive or negative. Manganites, they have got a negative magnetoresistance. So types of MRs, we have got a tunneling MR, colloidal means very, very high. Then we have got a giant magnetoresistance, GMR, and then anisotropic MR. I will not go into the details of all these type of magnetoresistance, their origin and their usefulness. But important thing is that the giant magnetoresistance was first seen in the thin films of the metals. The metals were there, they are composed, metal multilayers were there. They are composed of alternate ferromagnetic and non-magnetic layers, and the properties of these films were studied, and people came across very important aspect called as giant magnetoresistance, which is used in a variety of applications. I will not go into the details of how this GMR comes into existence. Then, but based on this magnetic resistance property, the magnetoresistive random access memories, that is called as MRAMs. These are the RAMs which are developed extensively. Here the data is stored by magnetic storage elements rather than electrical charge or current flows. You know there are two types of memories, random access memory and read-only memory. Whenever we want to read the data several times after writing, we have to use the RAMs. So therefore, the data storage can be done using the MRAMs, that is magnetoresistive random access memories. That means MRAMs does not lose its memory when there is no power. This is a non-volatile type of memories. So memory, the data remains whenever the power is off from the device. Electricity is not only supplied for data writing, but not for data, is only supplied for data writing, not for data storage. Data storage is there, is a property of the material. Therefore, the data stored in the MRAMs is a permanent data. This is very advantageous over the other things. Now, density of DRAMs, that is, there are different types of RAMs. I will not go into technicality of more of engineering side. There is a dynamic random access memory. Very high density of data can be stored. Again, another non-volatile memory is MRAMs. They are also advantageous. Then speed of the SRAM, that is a static random access memories, is very, very high. This is a table which compares the cell size, reading time, program energy per bit, and non-volatility. So we can see here different types of RAMs are given and different speeds are there. The reading time is 1 nanoseconds for the static random access memories, whereas in DRAMs, dynamic RAMs, is 10 nanoseconds. These are flash memories. So these are the technical aspects of the random access memories, and at the base of this development of these memories are nothing but the functional oxides. So multiferrics are the second category of the functional oxides, where we have got the two ferroic orders, either ferromagnetic, ferrotoroidic, ferromagnetic, ferroelastic, ferromagnetic, and then ferromagnetic, ferroelectric. All these, either two of the orders, they exist in one of the materials. Therefore, they are called as multiferric materials. So you can see here, when you apply the electrical field, you get magnetization in the material. When you apply magnetic field to the material, you get the electrical polarization in the material. These are very important materials because the electrical properties and the magnetic properties of the materials, that is polarization and magnetization, they are exhibited by only one type of material, one phase of the material. These are the magnetoelectric materials. From 1996-97 onwards, large number of research is underway in the field of multiferrics, and the developments of the new devices is underway now. Basic research, plenty of basic research has gone into the way, and now the applications of multiferrics are already in the market. So then next category of the materials, functional materials, is diluted magnetic semiconductors. Actually, why diluted? Name suggests because it is the small doping concentration, very few percent, hardly 3 or 4% of doping of the magnetic impurity. They behave magnetic behavior. Their behavior is magnetic, but basically they are semiconductors. Their properties are semiconductors. So these are called as DMS materials, or diluted magnetic semiconductors. So there are three types of semiconductors basically. One is a magnetic semiconductor exhibiting ferromagnetism. You can see these are magnetic ions in the non-magnetic lattice. Similarly, the second one is a non-magnetic semiconductor. It has got all non-magnetic ions are there, you can see here. But the DMS materials, that is the diluted magnetic semiconductor, the magnetic ions, the concentration of magnetic ions is extremely small, that is less than 3 or 4%, but they possess very interesting magnetic properties. So these DMS materials are useful in the spintronic applications. Examples of these is gallium manganese arsenic, gallium manganese nitride, zinc oxide doped with manganese, zinc oxide doped with titanium. They are used in the magnetic sensors. They are used in a variety of the applications in the data storage, data writing also. Because you know that the new functionalities to be integrated in the CMOS process flow. This is for the the students of the science, higher level of the students of the science. There's a Moore's law, which was given by a scientist. He said that, physicist, he said that number of transistors that can be placed inexpensively on an integrated circuit doubles approximately every 2 years. The size of the device becomes half, and the number of transistors, they become double every 2 years, approximately 18 to 24 months. This is how the development of the CMOS processes that glows very large. So you can see here AMD processors, that is third generation, fourth generation, fifth generations processors are coming now. So you can see the size of the chips. These are semiconductor chips that is shrinking day by day, right from 2002 up to 2015. The number of transistors goes to 19 millions and the size becomes 16 nanometers of the thin size, so that the distance between the source and the drain, that is becoming less and less, so that Moore's law is all about. So therefore the size of the material becomes nano, and here is the limit of the semiconductors. Here comes the use of the new functional materials, or they are called as spintronic materials. So now what are spintronic materials? Now this is a branch of our materials now. Every syllabi of the advanced level at master's level, they are introducing the spintronic materials. We also introduced our Department of Nanoscience for the MSc Applied Physics. Spintronic materials, you are talking about the two things. One is the charge of electron and the spin of the electron. Everybody knows that electron possesses a charge and electron possesses spin, like our Earth. Earth is rotating around its own axis, that is a spin motion of the Earth, and Earth is rotating around the sun in the allowed orbit, that is given right to charge. That is just, you say that the orbital motion of the electron, that is the charge is moving in the orbit and the spin is there, that's own axis. So therefore the spintronic devices, they are developed considering the charge and the electron spin. They have got very high speeds, higher speeds are there, low power consumptions are there in the spintronic devices. So you know that spin magnetic moment is up and down depending upon the motion of the spin motion. There's the orbital motion of the electron. You can see electron is moving the orbit across the nucleus. So this orbital motion of the electrons. So the charge and the spin, these are the two handles which are used. On the basis of this, new materials are developed. They are called as spin filters. So electron spins become polarized in the direction of the magnetization. This is the direction of the magnetization of the materials. Incoming electronic current is there having different type of spin directions. And whenever it comes out of this magnetized material, you get in one direction, and depending upon the magnetization, you have different types of spins in the preferred direction. These are called as spin filters, and these spin filters are developed using the functional materials. So therefore, these type of materials, spintronic materials, are used in the magneto-optical discs. These magneto-optical discs are WROM, that is write once read memory. These are magneto-optical discs. Here the spintronic materials, as I told you, DMS materials and functional materials are used in these magnetic sensors also. Then portable storage devices which we are using in the day-to-day life, that is our pen drives and our USB drives, data storage disk and so on. Everywhere the functional materials are replacing the conventional semiconductor material based on silicon, germanium or the 3-5 semiconductors. So computer memory types which are developed, which are volatile and non-volatile. As I have already told you, the non-volatile memories are RAMs, magnetoresistive memories, phase change memories, ferroelectric RAMs, and all these RAMs which are in future development, millipede RAM, nano RAMs, racetrack memories, these are the RAMs of the future. All these RAMs having very extremely high speeds, low power consumptions. They will be used in the future technological devices. Then after seeing about the technological applications of the functional oxides, I will show 3 or 4 slides on the nanomaterials now. Nanomaterials, because as you know that a Nobel Prize winner, the great legends in the physics, one of the great legendary figures in the physics is, the name is the Sir Richard Feynman. He dreamt of nanotechnology in 1959 in American Physical Society meeting. He said that there is a plenty of room at the bottom. When he said that, his talk was in 1959. He got a Nobel Prize in 1965. So you are talking, he's dreamt about nanotechnology 50 years before. Now we are experiencing the fruits of the nanotechnology, because he dreamt of this material long back. So nanotechnology, nanomaterials are existing in nature everywhere, on the feathers of these butterflies, on the peacock feathers, everywhere. The material which is exhibiting the colors is the nanomaterials. Nano is present in nature. This is our famous lotus effect. because the water droplets on the lotus leaves, they never stick to the lotus, they will be thrown out. This is called as hydrophobic nature of the surface. This is a very famous lotus effect, and based on this lotus effect, hydrophobic effect, large number of applications of the nanomaterials have been developed and under process of development actually. What is nano? I will not go into the basic definitions. So we are talking about the nanoscience, which is a fundamental understanding of the nanomaterials, and nanotechnology, which is the use of the nanostructures in the nanoscale devices in the technological applications. So nanotechnologies, we have to always talk about the materials of the size of 1 to 100 nanometers. They have got a variety of novel properties and phenomena as compared to the normal materials, that is micron size materials. So presently, whatever the viruses we are suffering with the COVID and these coronaviruses, they lie in the nano regime. Their size is around 70 to 60 nanometers. This is, I am talking of one of the dimensions, not the length, but the diameter also. So these are different living organisms. And if you can see here, tennis ball, which is 10⁸ nanometers, which you can hold or which you can have in your hand. So salt grain, cell, and so on. So this is a different sizes and the idea about the size. So nano regime starts from viruses, DNA, proteins, glucose, and so on. So this is about the living and the non-living world of the different materials, and the nano regime, that is from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometers are there. So this is the nanomaterials. How to approach nano? There are two processes. One is top-down process, another is bottom-up process. This top-down process, just for the layman, if you have a very big mountain and you start using a chisel. Earlier people used to having a chisel and a small this thing hathodi, or what you call as you have a chisel and a small stone, you can just make a small thing, you can make such type of caves. This is a very famous World Heritage, UNESCO Heritage site, that is cave number 16 of Kailash, named Kailash, in the Ellora caves, very close to Aurangabad. This top down process, you start with a big thing and you end up with a very, very small, extremely small dimensions, less than micron size. That is a top-down process, which are called as physical process. Bottom-up process, you start with the sand. These are the pyramids in near Cairo, Egypt. So you can start with the sand grains, which are very, very small, millimeter size or less than millimeter size, and you build up big structures. But basic ingredient is a nanomaterial or nano size. So this is a bottom-up approach, or it is also called as a chemical approach of synthesizing nanomaterials. So this is a picture of how the nano becomes very small here. This is the DNA RNA sequences and all these cells are there. So this is a nano actually. Then the properties of nano, size dependent physico-chemical properties are there in the nano. I will not go into the details of these nanomaterials. This is rather popular talks which normally I give at different places. That is about the nano, because I am working in this field from last 10-15 years and I have started the department based on my expertise in the field of nanomaterials. So now an important applications of nano in the medical is targeted drug delivery. Nowadays, this is a very hot topic in the field of nano. 70% of applications of nanomaterials are in the medical science. You are talking about the nanoparticles. You have a drug molecule. You have a drug molecule which is already attached to the targeting molecule, and you can go to the disease site, and drug molecules which are there, they will be released. And this carrier molecule, well, that will be dissolved in your blood plasma or blood fluid, and the targeted, your drug will go to the disease site, and this is a very important discovery and developments are going on. So all the developments in the nanomaterials are always aimed at some better or important applications. So nanoceramic, nanocosmetics, you can see everywhere nanoparticles are used in the cosmetic industry. It is a multi-billion industry. You can talk about the nanomaterials use, nanomaterials of zinc oxide, titanium oxides, they are used for protection under the UV. Harmful UVs are coming and they are spoiling our skin. Top layer of the skin gets damaged. So from nano gold is used for the anti-wrinkles. Nowadays, the nano gold particles are used in the wrinkle-free schemes. So whenever somebody doesn't want to look like an old person, the skins get wrinkles. So nano gold is used in the anti-wrinkle creams actually. Then it is also used in the antibacterial activity of nanomaterials used in soaps and shampoos and wet wipes. So this is a very big industry, and challenging things are lying ahead, so that one can think about the use of nanomaterials, very simple nanomaterials in the applications, cosmetic applications. And large number of companies, they are involved, like L'Oreal, La Prairie. These are big international players, and this is you can see here 31 billion revenue of 31 billion on the R&D is put in the R&D on the nanomaterials. Then coming to the next type of functional materials, that is ceramics. Ceramics are inorganic non-metallic solids. They have got very high hardness and the strength, extremely high melting points, and they are very good electrical and thermal insulator. Very important application of ceramics are based on the electrical and thermal insulation. You can see here in the electricity boards are using the ceramic materials when they are using high tension lines. They are using these ceramic connectors everywhere. They are used in the potteries, glass, bricks, porcelain, cement, everywhere. Ceramic materials are used, which are non-metallic solids. They have got wide range of properties. Properties are very good hardness, very high wear resistance, brittleness, then refractory property, thermal insulators, electrical insulators. They are non-magnetic in nature. They are oxidation resistance, so they don't get oxidized. Prone to the thermal shocks. They are very chemically stable. So all these are very important properties of the ceramics. Porcelain materials, they are used in the high electrical insulations. I told you, they can withstand very high temperatures. They can sustain very high voltages. You have got that 50 kVA line, 100 kVA line, everywhere porcelain materials are used for the electrical insulations. They are used in our home, domestic applications. They are used for the tiles. Now we are talking about the different types of matrix composites are used. Ceramic matrix composites are used. Wall tiles, kettles, tables, cups and saucers, chairs, everywhere. Majority of our part of the home is using the ceramic materials in one way or other, right from the cup saucers which you are using up to the tiles on which you are day to day moving on in your homes and hotels and everywhere. These are ceramics. So actually ceramic tiles can be cleaned with very less effort. Actually, this now we are talking about the different types of qualities of the tiles. So these type of tiles are being developed in a big way in the India and abroad actually. Then Apple ceramic watches are coming now. These Apple ceramic watches, these are used using that special type of ceramics actually. And these zirconia ZrO2, zirconia ceramic composites are used for the watches, and it is rated about 8.5 mineral hardness. In comparison to the steel is 4.5 and aluminum is 2.5 to 3. You can see the hardness, mineral hardness is very, very large as compared to the steel and the aluminum also in the ceramic watches. So these are the different type of the comparison of the steel ceramic materials. Ceramic materials are there, and their metals, metallic properties, and their polymers. So all these ceramic materials, they have got very interesting aspects. Our properties are very much as compared to the metals and the polymers. So that's why ceramic materials are the materials of the future. Now lastly, I will talk about the composites. Composites are the materials of the future, or the 21st century will be seeing the plenty of applications of composites. Composites are made by combining two natural or artificial materials to maximize their useful properties and minimize their weaknesses. So good things are taken from two or more than two materials. Good things are taken for good properties and minimize the weaknesses. So whatever the bad things have to be suppressed. So this is what is human beings or the material scientists are doing, and we are also working in that area. Important, and one of the most important composite is glass fiber reinforced plastics. So these GFRP materials are one of the oldest composites, which combines glass fibers which are very strong but brittle, and the brittleness is there, so therefore they are mixed with the plastics. Plastics are flexible, plastic fibers. So therefore you have the glass fibers which are combined with the plastic fibers, and you make a composite. This is very tough, but not brittle. The brittle nature of the glass fibers is taken care by mixing with the plastic. So therefore you can see that they are not brittle. So these are GFRP materials, composites. Most composites consist of fibers of one material tightly bound into another material called as matrix. So we have the material and mixed in the matrix. So we have two types of components are there in the composites. So polymer matrix, for example, One is polymer matrix type of composites. It consists of ceramic fibers in the plastic matrix. This is very interesting. Then metal matrix. Metal matrix, these composites use silicon carbide (SiC) fibers embedded in a matrix made from an alloy of aluminum and magnesium, but other matrix materials such as titanium, copper, iron are increasingly being used. So large amount of research is being developed on the metal matrices now, metal matrix composites. And lastly, the composites which are useful in the future also are ceramic matrix composites. Here, these are major type of composites. An example include silicon carbide fibers embedded in matrix made from borosilicate glass. These ceramic matrix makes them suitable particularly for the use in lightweight, high temperature components of the aeroplanes jet engines, where you need very high strength. The pressure gradients are very, very high. These lightweight, they should be lightweight because ceramic materials are there, lightweight, and the pressure withstanding and temperature withstanding capacity is very high. These are ceramic matrix. So you can see here, these are the new type of composites which are coming. Nano composites, since last 10-15 years, you are talking about nano composites. Graphene and nanotubes are making composites. And the bicycles, nowadays, instead of the metal frames of the bicycles, now the carbon composite bicycle frames are there. A small child also can lift a bicycle now. Not like earlier, a heavy man has to lift the bicycles now, because the lightweight and the speed of the bicycles can be very high in a very less efforts are there. Aeroplanes also, you can see the windshields and all the materials of the aeroplanes are using these nano composites now. So alloys are replaced using the rubber composites now. Everywhere the plastic and rubber composites are here. About 50% of the composite materials are used in different parts of the plane, right from the covering of the plane, that is the complete structure of the plane, to the seating area, the belts which are used, the composites are used. So therefore, this is what I want to cover in my 1 hour talk webinar. So I thank you, and this just in 1 or 2 slides I will show you our laboratory and facilities available. This is a laboratory in the physics department. For last 25 years I was in physics department. I have developed about crores of rupees of facilities which are existing in the physics department. These laboratories are developed. This is developed by me, and all the instruments which are there in the physics department available for the users. This is a thin film facility available in the physics department of Saurashtra University. These are the facilities available, purchased from the university funds and my own project funds. Lot of project funds I generated. These are the facilities, PLD facilities, unique facility in Gujarat state. In the Department of Nanoscience we have developed. This is available to the users also. These are STMs and PQMS, and all these facilities are there. Thank you very much. These are a group of my students who are very active researchers and academicians. Thank you very much. Thank you. कहाँ से ले लेंगे? Okay. Yeah, you are most welcome to ask any questions related to this field. Questions can be basic questions. People interested in the science lovers can also ask questions. Around 5-10 minutes we can spend for question answers. Thank you. नहीं दिख रहे मुझे तो नहीं डाल दो क्या? अलाउ बोथ पब्लिक एंड प्राइवेट मैसेजेस?
Yes.
करूँ? ओके करूँ?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
Good question.
Enable chat करोगे? Chat enable? Okay, yeah. Yes, questions are invited. If any questions are there, I'll be very happy to answer the questions, or you can write the questions also. The coordinator of this webinar can just pass on to me. Questions? Any questions? I'll be very happy to answer the questions. Yeah, there are few questions.
Hello, participants. There are a number of questions, but we will only answer few questions.
Yeah, I can select few questions out of that.
Okay.
Okay, one
We
of the
have-
question is there. Here it is asked. It is asked actually, functional oxides are oxygen deficient or oxygen rich. This is asked by Dr. Vandana Shinde. Yeah, functional oxides like manganites, multifluorides, they are mostly oxygen deficient materials. Large number of properties of functional oxides depend upon the conduction mechanism of the defects. So these are defect driven conductivity is one of the most important aspect of these functional oxides. Mostly these are oxides, so the conductivity is a whole conductivity, that is p-type conductivity. This is asked by Dr. Vandana Shinde. What are DMS, diluted magnetic semiconductors, and what are their characterization techniques? This is asked by Dr. Nilesh Kumar Pandya. This question is very interesting. Actually, diluted magnetic semiconductors, as I told, if you dope about 3 to 4% maximum magnetic impurity into a semiconductor host lattice, you can synthesize diluted magnetic semiconductor. And the characterization techniques are usually X-ray diffraction for structure, scanning electron microscopy or transmission electron microscopy for the microstructure, and then most importantly for the magnetic characterization, because they have got a magnetic properties. Some are antiferromagnetic, some are paramagnetic, some are ferromagnetic. So to know the magnetic state of the material, that DMS material, the vibrating sample magnetometer VSM is used extensively for bulk materials, whereas SQUID magnetometer used for the thin films of the DMS materials. Then there is a question by what kind of problems you deal with while working in this field. This is asked by one participant named Nikhil. See, basically when you do research in the field of materials, large number of problems ought to be there. There will be problems, but you have to always find a way. You should never say that I don't have all these facilities, there is nothing, no funding. All these excuses should be kept apart, and you should work to solve these problems and do a good quality research. That is what is most important for a scientist. Sir, there is a question asked by Amritanshu, and he asked, sir, can you throw some light on zero-dimensional nanomaterials? Yeah, zero-dimensional nanomaterials, they are also called technically as Q dots, quantum dots. See, basically, these can be grown using mostly they are grown using the chemical methods, that is the bottom-up approaches. Sometimes they can be grown using the physical methods, that is top-down approaches also. Actually, these quantum dots, their size is in the narrow regime. Mostly they are around 4 to 5 nanometers of the size. And these Q dots are extensively useful in the technology, like we are talking about the optical applications. We are talking about the new technological spintronic developments of the devices. These quantum dots are used. So Q dot technology is very important. And based on this, the new theoretical concept was quantum computing, and quantum computing materials are being developed by the nanotechnologies. Thank you. Last question is by Vaishnavi Sanjeev. She asks, sir, normally according to the property which we require, we are making the nanoparticles. Could you please tell some examples about diluted magnetic diluted magnetic semiconductors? I told you, when you have a zinc oxide semiconductor matrix, and the zinc oxide semiconductor matrix, you dope the manganese, which is a magnetic material, magnetic particle. So if you put a magnetic atom into the zinc oxide matrix, you can make a diluted magnetic semiconductors, provided the doping concentration should be less than 3 to 5%. So you have the you retain the semiconducting property behavior. Along with that, you get the magnetic property in that material. So therefore, there are many of applications of the diluted magnetic semiconductors. And lastly, one question is there by Dr. S.M. Ravi Kumar. What is the cost we have to spend to start the research in the field of composites? See, basically, the cost or investment in the research in the composites is very, very, very less. Only you have to procure good quality chemicals, and you have to synthesize good quality material. In the research in any material science, it is said that 50% of your battle, if you consider it as a battle and you have to win the battle, 50% of your battle is won if you make good quality material. Quality of the material, if you are thinking about a single phase crystalline material, your technique of preparing the material should be very, very good. Once you synthesize very good quality material, single phase material, the properties will follow. And for synthesizing composite material, you should have very good quality chemicals to start with. You can use simple techniques of mixing, that is solid state reaction. If you don't have X-ray diffraction, you can approach the big laboratories or the institutes where they give you the X-ray facilities for characterization. Composites testing of the microscopic testing can be done. Mostly you should be able to synthesize good quality materials in your small developing laboratories. By spending around 2 to 3 lakhs rupees, you should have one furnace up to 1200 degrees centigrade to synthesize the composite materials in the bulk form. And furnaces are available not more than 60-70,000 rupees. Silicon carbide furnaces are available. So in a very small amount, you can start a small research laboratory in the composites. Thank you. So I think there are a large number of questions, but there is a time. Time is also important. And I'll be very happy. My email address was there in the starting of the seminar. I told you my website is there. You can anytime write to me. I'll be very happy to help. And I thank the organizers for giving me opportunity to share little knowledge in the basic form. I have not given any research data, no research discussions, because main aim of this webinar planning by the organizers is to create the awareness and interest in the science and development of the science, that is applied physics and technology. So I feel in the future coming 3-4 days also, good speakers will be coming, well-known speakers will be delivering their talks in the respective fields. So I thank you all the participants and the organizers, and I thank the Saurashtra University for giving me opportunity to deliver this webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I thank Professor D.G. Kuberkar for giving very nice presentation. And tomorrow we will have another session with Professor Hariom Bas from SERF Ahmedabad. If there will be any change in the link, I will inform you. Just write me a mail I will give you an instant answer. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. At the end of the webinar series, we will provide you a link using which you can give your suggestion, your comments. How do you feel? I hope you like this presentation. Goodbye and have a nice day.